Picture a room the size of a cathedral. Now fill it with fire. 6 fireplaces, each one wide enough to roast an entire ox. And they are roasting entire oxen, along with deer, swan, boar, and things you would rather not identify by smell alone. The heat is savage. In winter, it keeps you alive. In summer, which ended only a few weeks ago, it turned this room into something closer to purgatory than kitchen. Add the noise, the constant, relentless noise of iron striking iron, of knives on wood, of fat hitting coals and erupting and hissing, spitting bursts. Add the shouting. The head cook doesn't ask. He doesn't suggest. He screams. He's been screaming for 30 years, and his voice has been shaped by it into something that carries across 3 rooms and cuts through 6 other conversations without effort. Add the smell. Fat rendering. Blood from the slaughter yard that still hasn't quite washed out of the drainage channel. Onions. Vinegar. Something sweet and slightly rotten underneath everything, like a secret the kitchen is keeping. Add the people. 240 of them, just for the kitchens alone, moving in a choreography so practiced it almost looks peaceful from a distance. It is not peaceful. Someone is always late. Something is always burning. A boy of maybe 9 years old is standing too close to a spit, his face brick red, his job to turn and turn and turn the handle until someone relieves him or he faints, whichever comes first. And somewhere in all of this, quiet as a shadow, necessary as a heartbeat, is you. Your name is Agnes Thorne. You're 22 years old. You've been employed at Hampton Court Palace for 8 months. You're not a cook. You're not a scullion. You're not a laundress, a chambermaid, or a stable hand. Though all of those people are somewhere in this building right now. You are a taster. Which means that before the King of England eats anything at all, you eat it first. And you wake up every single morning knowing that today might be the day that kills you. We're going back there tonight. Not as a guest at the great feast, not as one of the courtiers in their silk and their feathers and their elaborate calculated smiles. We're going in through the back door, through the corridor that smells of tallow and damp wool, through the place where history was made by people whose names nobody bothered to write down. One day, one woman, everything she would have tasted, feared, survived, and understood. I make these history stories for people who need the world to slow down for a little while. Some of you are going to fall asleep to this. Some of you are going to lie there listening, increasingly awake. Because apparently there's a specific kind of person who finds it soothing to hear about what it was like to eat food that might be poisoned at a Tudor royal court. And I made peace with that a long time ago. Either way, get comfortable. The palace fires are burning, and somewhere in the kitchen a boy is still turning a spit. Here we go. Your eyes open to darkness. For a moment, half a second, maybe less, you forget where you are. Then it comes back. Not gradually, all at once. The way bad memories do. The smell reaches you first. It's always the smell. Tallow. That's the bass note. The smell of rendered animal fat used in candles, worked into the walls of the servants' dormitory after years of use. Impossible to remove now. Part of the building's identity, the way age marks a face. Under it, the particular damp of a stone structure that has never quite dried, not in all the centuries of its existence. Under that, 40 women in various states of sleep, breathing and sweating and dreaming their small private dreams. The warmth of 40 bodies in a closed room. A faint overlay of lye soap. That's Martha beside you, the laundress, who carries the smell of her work in her skin. And underneath all of it, drifting up from the kitchens 2 floors below, the ever-present ghost of last night's roasting, meat fat and wood smoke and something herbal. Rosemary, probably. They always use rosemary on the venison. You know what day it is before you open your eyes. Saturday, the 28th of October, 1535. You know it the way you know your own heartbeat. Because tomorrow is All Saints' Eve, and feast days mean extra shifts, extra courses, extra tastings, and extra everything that comes with serving a man whose appetite is as famous as his temper. The dormitory is cold. Your breath fogs the air above you. You're lying on a straw mattress in a narrow bed you share with Martha, a laundress who is still deeply asleep, one arm flung across your hip with the easy intimacy of people who stopped caring about personal space around the 3rd week. Martha smells of lye soap and something faintly floral, the Queen's linens. She pressed them yesterday and the scent has transferred to her skin. It's a strange smell to carry home, the smell of another woman's sheets. You ease out from under her arm without waking her. The floor hits your bare feet like a judgment. Stone, cold and unforgiving, cold enough to make your breath catch. You've learned to move quietly in the dark. 8 months of practice. The dormitory has 16 beds, 32 women, and precisely 1 tallow candle allowed per room per night, a luxury that burned out hours ago. You navigate by memory alone. Your shoes are by the foot of the bed. Your dress is on the hook 2 steps to the left. Your apron is beside it. Coarser linen, still carrying yesterday's starch and the faint ghost of the kitchen. You wash your face from the basin in the corner. The water has a thin skin of ice on it, not quite frozen through, but close. Close enough that when you splash it against your face, the shock of it makes your jaw clench and your eyes water, and every part of you insists that this is a terrible idea. You do it anyway. This is survivable, you think. You have thought this every single morning for 8 months. So far you have been right. Before we go any further, you need to understand what the job actually is. Because most people, when they hear the words food taster, imagine something refined, elegant, a woman in silk lifting a crystal goblet to her lips with practised grace, pronouncing judgment on the vintage with the serene authority of long experience. That is not what this is. This is standing in a kitchen that smells of blood and rendered fat, being handed a piece of bread by a man who is watching you with an expression that is half professional assessment and half something you don't examine too closely, and eating it in front of him, in front of 2 servants required by protocol to witness, in front of whatever God might be watching, which in the year 1535 at the court of Henry VIII is a question nobody answers confidently anymore, then waiting. The waiting is the worst part. Not a long wait. If it's going to happen, it usually happens fast. Arsenic can take hours, it's true, but hemlock is quicker. Wolf's bane, aconite the physicians call it, can make your lips tingle within minutes. And then other things happen, and then other worse things happen, and then you die on a kitchen floor while everyone around you holds very, very still. What you're waiting for in those seconds after eating is anything, a strange taste, a burning sensation that shouldn't be there, numbness in the tongue, tingling at the fingertips, dizziness, the particular metallic quality that can signal several different kinds of wrong. Usually nothing happens. Usually the bread is just bread. The wine is just wine. The sauce tastes of pepper and ginger, and the particular richness that 20 years of practice produces, and you nod, and the dish goes forward, and the king eats it, and lives. Usually. That word is doing an enormous amount of work in this story. Let me be precise about what it means to live inside that word every day. In 1531, 4 years before you arrived, a cook named Richard Roose put something in the porridge served to the household of the Bishop of Rochester. 17 people became violently ill. 2 of them died. Richard Roose was arrested, tried, convicted of poisoning, and then he was boiled alive. Not hanged, not beheaded, the gentleman's death. Boiled, lowered into a pot of water and cooked alive, which took, well, the records don't dwell on how long it took, but the method was chosen specifically because the punishment was designed to mirror the crime. You poison by means of food and cooking. You die by means of food and cooking. An Act of Parliament was passed specifically to establish this precedent, the Act of 1531. Poisoning a royal or noble household is treason. The punishment is boiling. The Act is still on the books. Everyone in every royal kitchen in England knows about Richard Roose. You don't need to look it up. It's not taught formally. It's just absorbed, the way you absorb everything in this place, through proximity, through the air, through the face that the older cook makes when a new kitchen boy asks why they're so careful about where the spices come from. Because of Roose, the face says. It doesn't need to say it out loud. This is the world you walked into when you accepted this position. You accepted it because the alternative, after your father died in the spring of 1534, leaving debts and a demolished wool business and a daughter with nowhere to go, was considerably worse. Your father's old friend Robert Swale, a gentleman usher in the household of a minor nobleman connected to the court, wrote you a letter. He had heard, he wrote, that the tasting office at Hampton Court was seeking someone with steady nerves, a reliable constitution, and no great attachment to any particular future. You had all 3. You had nothing else. So you came. The kitchen fires are already roaring by the time you make your way down through the building. You have learned this route by heart. Left out of the dormitory, down the narrow back stair used only by servants, right at the bottom past the door to the wet larder where last night's fish sits in its salt, left again through the scullery. Carefully, because the scullery boys are half awake at this hour and will walk directly into you, and finally into the anteroom off the great kitchen where the tasters wait. The anteroom is small, 8 feet by 6, with a bench along one wall and a table with 2 chairs. The walls are stone. The floor is stone. The window is a narrow slit near the ceiling that lets in cold air and a thin bar of grey morning sky, and nothing else. In winter, the cold comes through the stone of the walls directly. You can feel it against your back if you sit on the bench for too long. Master Hodgkins is already there. Master Hodgkins runs what the court calls the tasting office, which sounds considerably grander than it is. He's a compact man of about 50, with knuckles that are always slightly swollen from some old injury that he never discusses, and eyes the colour of old bronze coins. He has been at Hampton Court since before Henry was king. He watched Henry VII eat, then watched Henry VIII eat, and he has outlived 3 queens, 2 Lord Chancellors, and more minor courtiers than he can count. He does not look impressed by your arrival. He doesn't look unimpressed either. His face every morning performs the same function. It registers you, processes you, files you under present and on time, and moves on. The rolls are ready, he says, without looking up from the ledger he's marking. Salt cellar has been secured since last night. Wine was locked after the evening service. I'll be watching the bread myself this morning. You'll do the salt, the morning posset, and the March pane. You feel something in your stomach at the last word, not quite dread, more a heightening of attention. March pane? Queen's household requested it for the morning service. Plate from the confectionery. Taste every piece. You nod. You have learned not to show any reaction. Not to difficult instructions, not to easy ones. Consistent, steady. The job requires it. March pane is almond paste sweetened with rose water and sugar, pressed into decorative shapes, flowers, animals, heraldic symbols. It's expensive. It takes skill to make. The taste is intense and sweet and genuinely wonderful. It's also one of the easiest vehicles for arsenic, because the sweetness covers everything. This is something you know now that you didn't know 8 months ago. You know it because Ellen Bryce told you, on your second day, in a voice as matter-of-fact as if she were explaining how to fold a napkin. The sweet things are the ones to watch. Sugar hides what it needs to hide. Trust your tongue. It knows more than your mind does. She handed you a piece of apple tart. You ate it. Nothing happened. She said good, the way a woman says good when she means that's the best possible outcome, and we'll continue hoping for that outcome every single day. You've been hoping and eating and finding nothing wrong for 8 months. The bread arrives at the service hatch at 6 o'clock. Hampton Court has its own chapel, its own chaplains, its own musicians, its own service conducted morning and evening, the prayers recently revised to reflect the fact that the Pope's authority over England ended in 1534, and the King is now supreme head of the Church of England, which is a change everyone at court has absorbed and nobody at court openly discusses. The chapel bells ring the hour, and the sound comes through the stone like something alive, a low trembling that you feel more than hear. The bread is carried in by a boy of about 14, pale, thin, moving with the particular careful terror of someone who has been told one too many times about the consequences of accidents. The board holds 12 mancha rolls. Small, round, the fine white bread served to the king's personal household, made from the best sifted flour the bakers have. You can smell the warmth of them from 2 feet away, fresh from the oven within the last half hour. The crust makes a particular crisp sound when you press it with one finger, like a small promise. You check the crust. The point of this is partly practical, confirming freshness, ensuring nothing was left to sit overnight in conditions where it could acquire unwanted additions, and partly ritual. The ritual matters. Every step of this process is witnessed, recorded, and ceremonially consistent, because consistency is documentation, and documentation is the only defence anyone here has. The crust is fine, springy, warm. Master Hodgkins is watching with his tablet in hand, a small wax tablet of the kind clerks use. He makes a note of the time. Everything is noted. Every tasting is recorded. If you die, or become ill, or find something wrong, there will be a record. This is not as comforting as it might sound. You tear a piece of the first roll. The inside is white and soft, with the mild, yeasty smell of good flour and the faint sweetness of well-made manchet. You put it in your mouth, chew, swallow, feel the texture dissolve. Note, warm, slightly sweet, the taste of crust and soft interior together. No sharpness behind it, no tingling, no metallic quality, no bitterness. Nothing at all except warm bread on a cold morning. Roll 1, you say. Hodgkins makes a note. You move to roll 2. This is the rhythm. You don't eat each roll completely. The protocol requires a substantial bite, enough to sample the full character of the thing. but not enough to consume 12 rolls before 7 in the morning. By roll 4, you're no longer hungry in the way you were when you woke up. By roll 8, your stomach is reasonably full and your mouth carries the pleasant, neutral taste of good bread. Roll 12. Fine. The salt cellar is next. The king's personal salt cellar, the great ceremonial piece that sits at the head of the high table and before which all lesser diners are quite literally placed, giving us the expression below the salt, has been under lock and key since it was cleaned and refilled last evening. Hodgkins holds the key. He has held it since 1527. Before him, a man named Simmons held it. And before Simmons, Hodgkins can trace every keeper back to the reign of the previous Henry, and will do so if you show the slightest interest. The salt cellar at Hampton Court is made of solid gold, not plated solid, worked by a Flemish goldsmith in the previous decade into the shape of a sailing ship, with tiny gold figures on the deck and coloured gems inset along the hull. It is worth more than your entire family history several times over. It sits on the anteroom table looking completely out of place, like something from a dream that wandered accidentally into an ordinary room and can't find its way back. You take a small portion of salt with a bone-tasting spoon, purpose-made, used only for this, and transfer it to a wooden dish. You wet your finger, touch the salt, taste it. Salt tastes like salt. This is what you're looking for. Not the presence of something strange, but the complete, uncomplicated absence of anything else. Just the clean, direct sharpness of sodium chloride with nothing attached to it. Clean salt tastes clean. You know this now, the way you know the difference between bread baked this morning and bread baked yesterday. The knowing lives in the tongue rather than the mind. 8 months of practice, it tastes like salt. Cellar, acceptable. Hodgkins writes it down. The posset is more complicated. A posset is a drink, hot spiced milk, curdled with ale or wine, sweetened with honey, warm with cinnamon and ginger and clove. It's what the king takes in the mornings when his legs are troubling him, which is more often lately than it used to be. The old jousting wound from 1524, a tournament accident that shattered his leg and left the bone wrong, has been causing increasing difficulty. Some mornings, you've heard, he can barely put weight on it. You're not supposed to know this. You know it because you work in a palace where 240 people serve one man, and 240 people talk to each other, and information moves through the servants' corridors like water through stone, finding every crack, wearing everything smooth, unstoppable. The posset comes from the confectionery in a silver jug, transferred to a tasting cup by Hodgkins himself. He watched it prepared. He watches everything. You drink. The posset is very hot, almost too hot to manage comfortably, which you take as a sign it was made minutes ago and covered immediately. The heat carries the cinnamon and ginger forward first, sweet and sharp together, and then the honey underneath, and then the slight sourness of the ale working against the sweetness, and finally the warmth of the ginger settling at the back of your throat like a small fire that's made itself comfortable. No sharpness, no numbness, no metallic quality, nothing at all except warmth and spice and a hunger to have a second cup, which is not part of the protocol. Posset, acceptable. Now the marchpane. A wooden board, 12 pieces, arranged by someone with a genuine eye for composition. Roses mostly. Small pale pink roses with gilded centres, each petal individually formed. 3 lilies in white with green stems. A Tudor rose, because there is always a Tudor rose when there are marchpane pieces at court. White and red petals alternating. The symbol of the union of Lancaster and York. The symbol of this family's claim to the throne. A small crowned lion. Each piece is about 2 bites worth of paste. You eat a corner of each one. The taste hits immediately, intensely sweet, the rosewater perfume strong enough to seem almost visible, and underneath it the particular graininess of ground almonds and the smoothness of sugar work to a fine consistency. Piece 1, fine. Piece 2, fine. Piece 3, fine. By piece 7, your teeth ache from concentrated sweetness. You can feel it in your jaw, a slight complaint from the muscles. The rosewater has become almost suffocating in quantity. You wish you had water. Piece 8, fine. Piece 9, fine. Piece 10, fine. But by the 10th piece your ability to taste distinctions is compromised by the accumulated sweetness. This is a known problem with marchpane tastings. You compensate by eating slowly, letting each piece rest on different parts of your tongue before swallowing. Piece 11. You stop. Hold it in your mouth for a moment longer than the others. Put it down. Hodgkins notices immediately. He notices everything. What is it? I don't know, you say. Then, something. A taste. What kind of taste? This is the moment that requires the most precision in the job. Not the eating, the description afterward. Because panic makes everything taste wrong, and vagueness invites uncertainty that helps nobody. And if you raise alarms every time your imagination offers you a ghost of something, you'll last about a week before Hodgkins replaces you with someone with steadier nerves. Ellen Bryce told you, on day 3, don't let the fear season the food. The fear will always be there. Don't let it cook everything. Taste what's there, not what you're afraid of finding. You think. The taste behind piece 11's sweetness is dry. Not bitter, not metallic, not sharp. Just a dryness that wasn't in the other 10 pieces. A quality like almonds that have been in storage too long, slightly past themselves. Could be bad almonds, you say. Almonds that have started to turn. They go slightly rancid, dry and faintly bitter. Or it could be the gilding compound. Some confectioners use verdigris for certain colours. Verdigris has a slight toxic quality, Hodgkin says. He picks up piece 11 himself, examines it, presses it between his fingers, smells it. We'll isolate it, he says. His voice hasn't changed. This is the thing about Hodgkins. His voice never changes. It's the same quality whether he's noting the time or discussing a potential poisoning. It makes him very good at his job and very difficult to read. The rest goes forward. This piece goes to the strong box. I'll have the confectioner examined. He takes piece 11 and places it on a separate wooden dish, covers it with clean cloth, makes a note. Then he looks at you, not with concern, or not only with concern, with assessment. You feel anything? No. The quality was very faint. I'm probably fine. Probably, he says. He writes something on his tablet. 20 minutes. Stay here. If anything changes, call immediately. He leaves. You sit on the bench and you wait. This is also the job. The waiting after. Not afraid exactly. Fear is a sharp thing, sudden and bright. What you feel right now is something slower and more systematic. A careful, extended awareness of your own body. You're taking inventory, cataloguing sensations, the warmth from 12 rolls still in your stomach, the sweetness of the marchpane and the spice of the posset, the clean taste of salt behind everything. Your fingertips, normal. Your lips, normal. Your tongue, normal, slightly overworked from 12 pieces of sweetness. Your throat, normal. Your vision, clear. Your heart, beating slightly faster than it should be, but that's attention, not symptoms. 20 minutes, nothing happens. Hodgkins returns. Read your face. Fine? Fine. He nods. He writes it down. Now you need to understand the kitchen itself. Because the kitchen is the world. For most of the people in this building, the way the sea is the world for sailors. Everywhere, ever present, governing everything about how you live. The great kitchen at Hampton Court is not one room. It's a complex of 55 rooms spread across a significant portion of the palace's lower floors. The great kitchen itself, where the roasting and main cooking happens. The boiling house, where great cauldrons produce broths and stocks. The pastry, where the bread bakers work from 2 in the morning. The confectionery, where the sugar work and marchpane are made. The larder, where the raw materials are stored. The wet larder for fish. The dry larder for salt-cured meats and preserved goods. The spicery, where the expensive spices are weighed and dispensed under careful accounting, and a dozen other rooms for specific functions. This kitchen complex can produce food for 600 people at a time. On feast days, it has to. You push through the service door into the great kitchen at 7:30 after the morning tastings are complete and before the midday preparations begin in earnest. You're allowed here. The tasting officers standing throughout the kitchens, and Hodgkins has made clear to every head of every section that the tasters move freely. Even Master Geoffrey acknowledges this, which means something. The heat hits you like a hand pressing flat against your face. October in England means cold everywhere except here. Here October doesn't exist. The fires burn because they must, not because of the weather, and they burn at a temperature that makes the air above the coal shimmer, and the far side of the room looks slightly unreal through the rising heat. 6 fireplaces. You already knew the number. What you couldn't retain from being told is the scale. Each one nearly 8 feet across, with iron fire dogs as tall as a man, and the spits spanning the full width loaded at intervals. The roasting spits are turned by small boys, spit boys they're called, which is accurate in the way that all job titles here are accurate, which is to say it describes the function exactly and the humanity not at all. The boy you see most often has a name, Will. He's 9 years old. He came from an orphanage in Islington 2 years ago, when one of the undercooks went looking for cheap labour and found it. He works in shifts of 2 hours at the spit, turning, while the fat from the roasting meat spatters and the heat from 6 feet of fire presses against his face and his arms. He has a bandage on his left hand today. He had a bandage on his left hand yesterday. You have never asked about the bandage, and you never will, because the answer will not improve anything. Will's face this morning is the colour of old brick. His eyes have the unfocused quality of someone working deep inside endurance, past the point where the mind is fully present, past the point where the body is doing anything but its one job. His arms move in a rhythm that has gone beyond conscious control, the muscle memory of months at this single task. You stop near him for a moment. He doesn't look at you. His eyes are aimed at the middle distance, somewhere between the fire and whatever he thinks about when he's here. You can see his lips moving slightly. Counting maybe. Counting turns of the spit, giving himself a number to reach. You keep walking. The room divides into territories that each operate with their own logic and their own hierarchy. Against the left wall, the confectionery work tables, where the careful men work in comparative quiet. Sugar work is a different discipline from roasting. It requires precision, patience, temperature control achieved without thermometers, only experience and touch. The confectioners are the most senior of the kitchen craftsmen, in their own estimation at least, and they're not wrong. Making a marchpane rose that will hold its shape, taking colour evenly, maintaining structural integrity through the processes of the feast service. This is skilled work, the kind of work that takes years to learn. Young Thomas is at one of the confectionery tables. Young Thomas is about 20 years old, a boy from Surrey with a pleasant face permanently dusted with sugar somewhere. He made this morning's March pane, including piece 11. He's working on tomorrow's feast preparations now, shaping almond paste with a wooden press while humming something low under his breath. He looks entirely well. You note this and file it away. Against the right wall, the wet workstations, the boiling pots hung on iron cranes over their own fires. The permanent stock pot. You've been told only once and seriously that it has been simmering continuously since the kitchen was built, with daily additions but never fully emptied, produces a brown aromatic liquid that forms the base of most of the kitchen's sauces. The story is probably not literally true, but the stock pot is certainly old, and the flavour of it is so complex and layered that it defies description. Tastes like the accumulated history of everything cooked in this building, time itself rendered into something edible. In the centre, the dresser, the great serving table, long as a river barge, scarred with 1,000 cuts from 1,000 knives, worn smooth in some sections from years of sliding platters. This is where the finished dishes are assembled before service. Meat transferred from spit to cutting board to platter, sauces poured from clay pots into silver vessels, garnishes arranged with the speed and assurance of craftsmen who have done this 10,000 times. Everything that passes across the dresser will, before it reaches the king, pass through you. You stand near the dresser for a moment, watching. This is the thing that took you longest to understand. The kitchen has its own elegance, not the elegance of the great hall with its gilded ceiling and Flemish tapestries, a different kind. The elegance of extreme competence, of 200 people working in close proximity at high speed and high heat, producing things that would not exist without the collective effort of all of them. The saucier's sauce requires the stockman's stock, requires the butcher's bones, requires the keeper of the larder's careful inventory. Pull out any one of these people, and something breaks. They all know this, which is why the hierarchy is both strict and in some ways mutual. Even Master Geoffrey needs his spit boys. Master Geoffrey, who is currently standing at the far end of the dresser supervising the plating of the midday preparations, spots you. Thorn. Master Geoffrey. Venison shoulder from yesterday before midday service. I want it tasted again. The shoulder that went to the lower household? I stopped it, couldn't settle on it. He unfolds his enormous arms and examines a ladle. Something in the smell isn't right. Fetch it when you're ready. You nod. Master Geoffrey's instincts about smell are worth more than most people's formal analysis. 20 years of the great kitchen have given him a nose that functions as its own instrument. If he can't settle on a smell, there's a reason. The venison shoulder smells wrong. You know it as soon as it's unwrapped. The salt curing is solid, the outer surface correctly treated. But there's a quality underneath that sits in the air above the meat, like something trying to be ignored. faint and slightly sweet in a way that meat shouldn't be sweet. Master Geoffrey stands beside you with his arms at his sides. When he doesn't have his arms folded, things are genuinely concerning, and his face does nothing at all. How long in the cure? Since Wednesday morning. Wednesday to Saturday. 3 days. Standard for October, when temperatures are cooling but not yet cold enough to arrest decay reliably. When was it killed? Hunt on Tuesday. Came in early. Wednesday. A deer killed in the field, transported to Hampton Court in October. Probably a journey of several hours. In cool but not cold weather. Then into salt. Should be fine. Should be. There it is again. You taste a piece anyway. This is the job. Not to avoid the uncertain things, but to stand between the uncertain thing and whoever comes after you. The taste confirms the smell. Not catastrophically wrong. Not something that announces itself as spoilage, but with a quality that lives at the edge of acceptable. The faint suggestion of the word off spoken very quietly by your tongue, while your mind is still trying to decide if it heard anything at all. I'd pull it, you say. He nods. Once. He was going to pull it anyway. He brought you here for the record. Lower household gets it. Or the dogs. This is not cruelty. This is a hierarchy of acceptable risk that descends from the king's table to the dogs in the kitchen yard, with every level eating what the level above declined. The king eats the best. His household eats what remains. The lesser servants eat from what the household leaves. The kitchen dogs and the foxes beyond the wall get the rest. Nothing is wasted. This is not waste. This is the system. You have a few hours before the midday service. You use them, as you sometimes do, walking the palace. Hampton Court was built by Thomas Wolsey, who was once the most powerful man in England after the king. Archbishop of York, Lord Chancellor, papal legate, possessed of wealth and influence that made foreign ambassadors stare. He built this palace between 1515 and 1525 to demonstrate what the second most powerful man in England could accumulate. The gesture was too large. Henry looked at it and wanted it. Wolsey gave it to him in 1525, hoping the gift would demonstrate appropriate submission, would satisfy whatever it was in Henry that needed satisfying. It didn't. Henry took the palace and continued to be dissatisfied with Wolsey, and Wolsey continued to fall from grace, step by step, position stripped away, power dismantled, until in 1530 he was summoned to London to face a treason charge he knew he couldn't survive. He died on the way. Illness, officially, or a broken heart, or the specific way that falling from Henry's favour becomes a physical condition that ends in death. He was 60 years old. He had built the finest palace in England. He died in a bed in Leicester, alone, his life's work taken from him by the man he'd served for 20 years. This is not a warning that people here discuss. It is, however, a story that everyone in this building knows. You absorbed it within your first month, not from being told directly, but from the way people mention Wolsey's name when they're talking about something else, the slight careful quality that enters their voices. Wolsey means you can have everything and lose it. Wolsey means the favour of kings is not a foundation on which to build. You walk through the great hall which Wolsey built and Henry expanded. The ceiling is 60 feet above your head, the hammer beams gilded and carved, the junctions between beams marked with carved faces, angels, jesters, kings, anonymous men whose expressions range from serene to slightly alarmed. The windows are tall and admit the late October light in long, slanting bars that fall across the stone floor and make the dust in the air briefly visible. The tapestries on the walls are Flemish, 60 years old, depicting scenes from the life of Abraham. Abraham's face has the particular quality of Flemish religious painting, very serious, slightly uncomfortable, as if the painter was making sure the subject understood the weight of what was being asked of him. You know how he feels. The long gallery runs 200 feet along the east wing, with windows overlooking the gardens and portraits along the opposite wall. This is where courtiers walk on cold days, where information circulates in the form of whispered conversations that become fact through repetition, where alliances are formed and dissolved in the time it takes to walk from one end to the other. This afternoon it's quiet. 2 gentlewomen sit by a window at the far end, embroidering, their voices too low to reach you. A page hurries through in the opposite direction carrying something wrapped in cloth. 2 men in conversation near the middle stop talking as you approach and resume after you pass. You walk along the portrait wall. The portraits are of kings and queens and great lords, painted in the frontal style Tudor artists favour. The full face or 3/4 view, jewellery carefully rendered, the background a flat neutral that puts all attention on the subject. The faces display what you've come to think of as the official Tudor expression. I am here and I am powerful and I am giving you nothing. There is a portrait of Catherine of Aragon near the middle of the gallery. She was queen for 24 years. She came from Spain at 16 to marry Henry's older brother Arthur, and when Arthur died she remained in England in a kind of diplomatic limbo for 7 years before Henry married her. She was by all accounts devout and intelligent and thoroughly loyal to a man who stopped loving her or stopped needing her, which in a king amounts to the same thing. Henry annulled the marriage in 1533. Catherine refused to accept the annulment and refused to give up the title of queen. She's currently at Kimbolton Castle, ill, largely alone, still maintaining in her own mind that she is Queen of England. She'll be dead by January. You don't know that yet. You keep walking. At the far end of the gallery, near the door that leads to the Queen's private apartments, you see her, Anne. You've seen the Queen many times in 8 months, at feast days, in procession through the great court, once in the garden in the early morning, walking quickly with 2 ladies, her dark head bent against the wind. Anne Boleyn is 34 or 35 years old. The exact year is disputed even at court, which seems strange for a queen, but is apparently unremarkable given the circumstances of her life. She spent her formative years in the French court and carries something of it. In her hands when she gestures, in the quality of her attention, in a way of moving that is slightly too direct for English court standards. She's not conventionally beautiful by the blonde and pink standard that English portraiture favours. She is dark, sharp-featured, with eyes that are larger and more watchful than most faces. She became queen because Henry wanted her so badly he broke his country open to have her. He broke his first marriage, his relationship with the Pope, his country's centuries of Catholic tradition. He made himself the head of a new church. He sent men to their deaths for refusing to accept the new order. He did all of this for Anne. Anne has been queen for 2 years. She has given the king 1 child, a daughter, Elizabeth, born in September 1533, and 2 miscarriages since. The daughter is not what Henry wanted. She is not what Henry wanted. And the king's wants are not a private matter. Today, in the gallery, The Queen stands near the door to her apartment speaking to two ladies in quiet, quick sentences, her hands moving. She's wearing dark velvet with fur trim, pearl earrings, the French hood she prefers. She looks well dressed and tired in a way that goes below the surface, a tiredness that not all the dressing in the world addresses. She doesn't see you. You're a servant in a corridor. You're invisible here, not from cruelty, but from the basic architecture of how this court works. The machinery of the palace is designed to be invisible so that the experience of power remains uncontaminated by the awareness of how it's maintained. The food arrives, the fire burns, the linens are clean, and the candles lit and the spices measured. Whose hands do these things is not part of the performance. You walk past without stopping. She doesn't look up, but you look at her for the half second you have, from your peripheral vision, the way you've learned to look at everything here. She's waiting for something. You can see it in the set of her shoulders, in the slight forward tilt of her body. The quality of it is like standing on the edge of a thing, with the edge still uncertain beneath your feet. She'll be dead in 7 months. The 19th of May, 1536, in the Tower of London, the charges against her almost certainly fabricated, the trial a performance of a conclusion already decided. You don't know that yet. It's October 1535. The future hasn't happened. But looking at her face today, at the thing living behind it, you wonder if she can see further ahead than you can. You walk past. The gallery door closes behind you. Ellen Bryce is in the anteroom when you return, which is where she is most afternoons since her morning duties were reduced 2 years ago, in recognition, unspoken, never formalised, that 51 years old is old for this particular work. She's sitting on the bench with a cup of small beer and a piece of needlework. The needlework was taken up, she told you, because her hands need something to do that isn't about food. She said this without apparent irony, as if the observation was simply factual, which in her case it probably is. Her hands shake slightly. She told you on your first day that this is from a winter chill she had 3 years ago. She told you again in your 3rd month. She hasn't mentioned it since. She looks up when you come in and reads your face the way she reads everything, quickly, from a point of deep experience without appearing to try. You heard about the pastry boy, she says. Thomas, yes, apoplexy. That's what Butts said. You disagree with Butts. Ellen takes a measured drink of her beer, sets the cup beside her. I believe him. Butts is a good physician. He sees what's there. A pause. But I've been doing this for 25 years, and the rule I've found most useful is, the coincidences that frighten you are usually just coincidences, and then one day, they're not. You sit. He was the one who made Piece 11. Yes. He tasted Piece 11. Standard practice, confectioners taste as they work. Yes. And I tasted Piece 11. And I'm fine. You're fine. So either it was coincidence, Thomas's apoplexy, and the possibly odd taste of Piece 11 aren't connected, or the taste was real, but not in sufficient quantity to affect us both equally. Or it wasn't what you thought it was at all. Yes. Ellen nods slowly, turning her needlework in her slightly unsteady hands. Do you know what I've learned about this job after 25 years? You wait. You can't know. That's the truth of it. You taste. You report. Hodgkins investigates. Sometimes the investigation finds something and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the answer is satisfied and sometimes it isn't. And you eat the next thing and you wait again and you build up this... She pauses, looking for the word, this archive of things that might have been, things that were probably nothing, and the archive grows every year. She meets your eyes. In 1528, I tasted preserved figs at Greenwich, the old Queen's household, and noted a metallic quality. The dish was pulled. Nothing was found. That same evening, a gentleman of the Privy Chamber was violently ill for 3 days. He ate the figs? We don't know. We disposed of them. The cook who made them was not under suspicion, but his contract ended the following month. So was it the figs? Was the gentleman's illness connected? Or was it two coincidences that my mind connected into a pattern, because minds do that? Because we're looking for patterns in everything, and we find them whether they're there or not. She looks at her needlework again. I'm 51 years old. I've been doing this job since before you were born. I've never once been certain. The word drops into the room and settles. How do you keep doing it, you ask? She looks at you, and her expression is very fond and very tired in proportions that shift between them continuously, neither quite winning. What's the alternative? This is what the job does to a person. You've been coming to understand over 8 months, not just the physical risk, though the risk is real and constant and lives in your body at all times, the way cold lives in the walls of this building, but the epistemological weight of it, the daily accumulation of small possible wrongnesses, each one resolved or unresolved, each one filed in the growing archive Ellen described. Ellen Bryce's slightly shaking hands, her afternoons of deliberate emptiness, the way she discusses the most disturbing facts, the cooking of Richard Roose, the progression of arsenic through a body, the specific symptomatic differences between hemlock and aconite, with a flatness that is not the absence of feeling, but is the result of feeling carefully filed away over a long period, the way sediment files itself in layers until the pressure of it makes something harder than rock. This is what you're becoming, slowly, incrementally. You're not sure if it frightens you or stabilizes you. You think it might be both, and that they might be the same thing at a certain depth. All Saints' Eve falls on a Sunday this year. The feast tonight, larger than the usual dinner, more courses, longer service, music, throughout, begins at 5 in the afternoon and will continue for 3 hours. You know this because it is your business to know this. By 3 in the afternoon, the kitchen, which you thought was at peak intensity at 7 in the morning, has demonstrated that what you saw this morning was merely the preliminary, the opening phrase of a sentence that has been building all day and is now arriving at its full volume. Every fireplace is loaded. The spit boys have been working since dawn. Will has been working since before dawn, or something that lived where dawn would eventually be. You saw him there at 6 this morning when you passed through, and here he is at 3 in the afternoon, still at the spit, his face a shade of red that concerns you. You catch the eye of one of the undercooks. She looks at Will, looks at you, shrugs marginally. It is not cruelty. It is the reality of a feast day with too few hands and too many spits. You walk past Will close enough that the heat from the fire is a pressure against your face. His eyes, as you pass, focus briefly on yours with the unfocused quality of extreme exhaustion. There's nothing in his expression, no appeal, no request. The patient endurance of a child who has learned that endurance is the only available option. You think, his body knows this movement so deeply it's beyond thought now. You think, he's 9 years old. You keep walking because stopping doesn't change anything, and because the feast has to happen, and because nothing stops the feast. Arnaud, the head saucer, the man responsible for the savoury sauces, a Frenchman who arrived 4 years ago and has established a reputation sufficiently extraordinary that even Master Geoffrey no longer comments on the French origin of his methods, is tasting from a clay pot when you arrive at his station. He senses you without looking up. Agnes. Ah no. The hippocras is ready. You'll want it before service. Hippocras is spiced wine. Red wine with cinnamon, ginger, clove, strained through a cloth bag and served warm throughout a feast evening. It's one of the tastings you do specifically for feast service, because the spices make it an excellent medium for concealing almost anything. He hands you a small cup. You drink. Cinnamon forward. Then ginger, the hot, quick kind that sits at the back of the throat. Then clove, deeper. And then something else. Something faint and floral. A cleanliness that cuts through the warm spice. Lavender? Arnaud's expression shifts very slightly. You've improved. Is that appropriate for All Saints? Lavender purifies. He stirs his pot. Keeps evil spirits from the house. That's the old belief. I also put it in because it is clean and pleasant and the king enjoys floral notes in his wine, though I wouldn't put that particular observation in your tasting notes. It's good, you say, because it is. Of course it is. Tell Hodgkins, Hippocras acceptable. Behind him, his assistant is reducing something in a copper pan. Wine and vinegar, probably. The sharp, bright column of steam rising and catching the light. 5 o'clock. You're in position at 4:30. Hodgkins, Miles, the 2 witnesses against the wall, whose names you've been told 3 times. The tasting vessels prepared and waiting, the anteroom smelling of its stone coldness, and drifting through the service door, the accumulated smell of everything the kitchen has been doing all day. The first dish arrives at 4:50. Miles carries it with both hands in his formal livery. The king's colours, immaculate, probably pressed by Martha or someone like her while Martha thinks about other things. He sets it on the table, steps back. Potage of beef, brown and fragrant and very hot, the surface giving off a curl of steam. You taste. Fine. The nod. Miles picks it up, turns, carries it to the hall, where already you can hear the low rumble of assembled courtiers, the music from the gallery above, the particular quality of sound that a room full of people eating and performing their eating produces. Dish 2, buttered eggs with saffron. The eggs soft and golden, the saffron giving them a warm floral quality that's almost extravagant for a morning dish, but apparently correct for feast service. Fine. Dish 3, roast capon with verjuice sauce. The capon, castrated cock, because the flesh is tenderer and considered more refined, has been turned on the spit for hours. The skin crackled to a deep brown, the meat giving off steam when you cut through it. The verjuice, made from unripe grapes, sharp and astringent, cuts the richness cleanly. Fine. Dish 4, a pastry case filled with minced meat and dried fruit. Nutmeg and dates, the smell reaching you before the dish does. Fine. Dish 5, lampreys in wine sauce. You pause over this one marginally longer than the others. Lampreys are eel-like creatures, jawless fish, lived in rivers since before the dinosaurs. They were so beloved by Henry I that, the story goes, he ate so many of them that he died of a surfeit of lampreys in 1135, which would make this dish something of a dark historical joke if anyone at this table was inclined toward dark historical jokes, which Henry VIII is sometimes, though you can't always predict when. The lampreys taste rich and slightly sweet, the wine sauce reducing their intensity to something manageable. Fine. You move through dish 6, dish 7, dish 8. Dish 9 is an almond cream. You hold this one a moment before tasting. Not visibly. You've learned not to show the hesitation externally, but internally you're aware of it. The slight extra attention your tongue brings to this particular dish. The echo of this morning's piece 11. The dry quality that might have been nothing. Ellen's voice. Don't let the fear season the food. You taste the almond cream. Smooth, warm, sweet. The almonds present but refined. The cream is well made, the sugar balanced. No dryness, no unusual quality of any kind. Fine. You say it firmly. You move on. Dish 10. Roasted peacock, displayed in full plumage. This is spectacle rather than practical food. The feathers carefully removed and reattached after roasting. The bird arranged in a standing posture, suggesting it is merely resting rather than dead. The flesh is dark and slightly tough, but seasoned with pepper and herbs in a way that manages it. Fine. Dishes 11 through 22 proceed. The feast continues. Miles's hands never shake. The music plays. Somewhere in the hall you can hear Henry's laugh. The famous laugh, full and physical. The laugh of a large man who is genuinely amused and wants the room to know. He's been in a good mood today. Good moods at Hampton Court are a form of weather. Welcome while they last. Untrustworthy in duration. You taste, and nod, and taste again. The last dishes come through. The subtleties. Elaborate sugar sculptures that conclude a formal meal. Little architectural fantasies in white and gold, representing the confectioner's highest art. Each one about 2 bites. Each one perfect. Fine, fine, fine. 22 courses. Miles carries the last one to the hall. Hodgkins makes his final notation, closes the ledger, looks up. Good evening, he says. This is, in the language of Hodgkins, everything. The kitchen begins to quiet at 9. Not silent. The clearing continues. The fires die down by stages. The scullions begin the vast work of washing everything the feast used. But the intensity releases. The sustained, concentrated effort of 200 people working at the edge of their capability toward a single end softens into the ordinary end-of-day work, and the room exhales. You walk through one more time, marking the return to ordinary. Will is no longer at the spit. Someone relieved him, eventually. You hope he's sleeping somewhere warm. Master Geoffrey is in the corner with a cup of something, ale probably, watching 2 undercooks clean the dresser. He has the look of a large animal at genuine rest. Not sleep, but the specific rest that follows sustained effort. His eyes are half closed. He sees you. A pause. Nothing tonight, he says. Nothing. He nods. Drinks. The conversation is over. This is the best exchange you've had with Master Geoffrey in 8 months. You carry it out into the corridor like something. The palace at night is a different country from the palace by day. The guards make their rounds, footsteps in armour on stone, the particular careful sound of practised vigilance. The fires in the great hall have been let down to coals, and the shift from roaring fire to ember changes the quality of the light that falls through distant windows. Someone, somewhere in the upper rooms, is playing a lute. Just a few notes. Exploratory, inward. The kind of playing that happens when someone is unwinding from something. You walk through the garden gate and stand for a moment on the path. The moon is out, half full, giving enough light to see the garden's formal geometry, the rectangular beds, the low-clipped hedges, the central fountain drained for winter. Hampton Court's gardens were designed to be seen from the upper windows, their patterns visible as a whole only from a sufficient height. From down here, among the beds, You see only what's in front of you, the nearest hedge, the path curving away, the pale shape of a late October rose somehow still clinging to the end of a stem. The smell of the rose is faint and clean, and almost shocking after the kitchen smell that has been your atmosphere all day. You stand there and breathe it. The palace is enormous behind you, its windows showing yellow light in the inhabited rooms and darkness in the empty ones. The king's apartments are at the far end toward the river, with their gilded ceilings and the cloth of gold hangings, and all the elaborate artifice of power made visible. You are here. He is there. The distance between you is everything. And also tonight, you are the reason he is alive to sleep in that room. Maybe. In all likelihood, everything was fine, and piece 11 was bad almonds, and Thomas's apoplexy had nothing to do with anything, and the 22 dishes of the feast were exactly what they appeared to be. The extraordinary production of the best kitchen in England feeding its master well. In all likelihood. You stand in the garden for 5 more minutes. The rose smell fades, or you stop noticing it, which is the same thing. Then you go in, she's still in the anteroom. A single candle, the last of the day's allowance burning low, the needlework in her hands. 22 courses, you say. Reasonable feast. She doesn't look up. Nothing wrong, except this morning. Except the possible nothing of this morning. Hodgkins is having it examined. He'll find nothing, I expect. Probably. She ties off a thread, cuts it with small scissors from her pocket. Let me tell you something. Something I've never told anyone else in this office. You sit. In 1528, I tasted preserved figs at Greenwich, old Queen's household. I noted a metallic quality, faint, very faint. The dish was pulled, examined, nothing found. The copper-preserving vessel had possibly leached slightly. They changed the vessel, improved the process. No harm done. You wait. That same night, a gentleman of the Privy Chamber was violently ill for 3 days, vomiting, terrible cramping, recovered. He'd eaten the figs. He'd eaten at the same meal. Whether it was the figs. She spreads her hands slightly. We don't know. They've been disposed of. The cook who made them left the service the next month. Contract ended naturally. You think it was real? That you caught something? I think I don't know. I've been thinking about it for 7 years and I still don't know. She meets your eyes. Her own are very steady, which is not the same as calm. It's the steadiness that comes from looking at things directly for a very long time. And here is what that means practically. I did my job correctly. I reported what I found. The investigation was conducted. There was no proof of anything. And either I prevented something that day or I didn't, and I'll never know which. And it's been 7 years and I've tasted 10,000 things since then. A long pause. Does it bother you? You ask. Not knowing. Every day. Then why do I keep doing it? She looks at her needlework. I'm 51. My hands shake. I can taste food for a king. I can't do much else now. A pause. And someone has to. If not me, someone else. And better it be someone who knows what they're doing. She stands slowly, with the careful movement of someone whose joints complain in cold weather. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is All Saints, another feast. She blows the candle out. The room goes dark. Bryce, you say, into the darkness. Did you ever think it wasn't worth it? When you started, did you ever think, I thought about it every day for the first year. She's moving toward the door by memory, the way everyone here moves in darkness. And then I stopped thinking about it and started just doing it. That's the transition. When you stop asking if it's worth it and start asking how to do it better. She pauses at the door. You're almost there. Give it another month. Then she's gone. The dormitory is dark when you get back. Martha is deeply asleep, her breathing the slow, deep rhythm of someone who works hard all day and sleeps the way stones sink, completely without argument. She's taken up slightly more than her half of the mattress again. You don't mind. You ease in beside her, careful not to wake her, and lie on your back looking at the invisible ceiling. The building settles around you. The sounds of the palace at night. Guard footsteps, a distant door, someone coughing somewhere. The low creak of old timber responding to temperature changes. These are the sounds of a structure that holds 500 people and has never quite adjusted to that fact. You put your hands flat on your stomach and breathe. Today you tasted 12 manchet rolls, 1 salt cellar, 1 morning posset, 12 pieces of marchpane including piece 11, 1 shoulder of venison which was pulled for quality, 1 cup of hippocrase with lavender, 22 feast courses including a dish of almond cream, 1 of lampreys, 1 of roast peacock in its feathers, 3 subtleties in gilded sugar. Everything was fine. This is what a good day looks like. Nothing dramatic, nothing recorded in history books. Just a young woman from Norwich standing at the edge of the possible and finding nothing wrong. Good days are what you're for. You've had a lot of good days. This should comfort you and mostly does. But young Thomas on the floor of the pastry room comes back. The particular way the kitchen held its breath. The way 40 people kept moving but changed the quality of their movement. More careful, more watchful, each person calculating silently whether any finger might point their way. The knowledge under all of it, never spoken, of Richard Roose in 1531. Richard Roose put something in porridge. 2 people died. Parliament passed an act making it treason. Rose was boiled alive. This is the specific shape of what could happen to anyone in those kitchens if something goes wrong. Not just the person responsible, the person who can be made to look responsible. The cook who made the dish, the confectioner who tasted it, the girl who brought the ingredients, the boy from the spicery who dispensed the almonds, everyone who touched anything that passes through your hands before it passes through yours. In 20 minutes of held breath, you saw 40 people trace this shape and understand where they stood in relation to it. This is what Hodgkins writes down every morning. This is what the ledger is for. Not just the record of what was tasted, the record of who was there to witness it. The record that says, I was present. I performed the protocol. I fulfilled the function assigned to me. Documentation as armour. You close your eyes. The Queen's face comes back too. In the gallery this afternoon, the tiredness in it, the quality of waiting, the way she held herself as if bracing against something she could already feel coming. She was bold enough once to hold a king's attention for 6 years without giving him what he wanted, to make him remake the world to have her. That required nerve and intelligence and a specific kind of ruthlessness that doesn't often coexist with warmth, but somehow did in her. You've heard enough people who knew her, really knew her, to believe she was also genuinely warm, genuinely loved by the people who loved her. And now she stands in her own gallery looking like someone whose arithmetic isn't adding up. The king needs a son. She hasn't given him one. The king's eye, they say. They meaning the corridor outside the gentlemen's chambers, meaning the laundry women who do the privy sheets, meaning the pages who deliver notes. The king's eye has moved to a woman called Jane Seymour, quiet and fair and young, who has learned from man's example the exact art of withholding. History moving forward, Anne moving out of it. You think about what it means to be the person who was bold enough to reshape the world, and to discover that the world has continued reshaping after you stopped being useful to the reshaping. You think about the parallels, and then you stop thinking about the parallels because there are limits to what's useful to notice. The sounds of Hampton Court at night. The guards have completed their first round. The fires in the kitchen have been banked, still burning low, maintaining temperature for the morning work, but quieter now, not the roaring force of the feast, but a steady, patient presence. Somewhere above you, in one of the courtiers' rooms, the lute player is still playing. You've been hearing snatches of it all evening. The same few phrases repeated, worked through, the player finding something in them or trying to. It has the quality of someone working through feeling, not performing, just processing. 500,000 people in London, 7 miles east. This city, Hampton Court, it's quieter, but not silent. Never silent. Ellen Bryce's archive of possible wrongnesses, the things that might have been, accumulated over 25 years. You've been building yours for 8 months. The venison shoulder 2 weeks ago, pulled and examined, found slightly off, but nothing beyond spoilage. A dish of mussels in September that smelled wrong, pulled, found to contain a few that were dead before cooking. A hazard of mussels always, harmless in small quantity but worth flagging. A cup of wine in August that had a quality you couldn't define precisely, reported to Hodgkins, found to be simply a poor vintage from a bad part of the barrel, the sediment not properly settled. These are your entries so far. 8 months, 4 flagged items, 4 items examined and cleared, plus piece 11 from this morning, currently in the strongbox, awaiting examination. 5 items, nothing proven, nothing catastrophic. The king alive and eating, as he was when you arrived and will be, God willing, when you complete your contract and move to whatever comes next. You do not know what comes next. Your contract runs for 3 years. You have 28 months remaining. After that, you don't let yourself think about after that with any specificity. It's too far away, and the present has too much in it. The archive is not just the flagged items, though. The archive is everything. The archive is 12 manchet rolls every morning. The same salt cellar, reopened from the same strongbox. The posset with its cinnamon and honey and slight sourness. The parade of feast dishes, potage and capon and lamprey and peacock and almond cream and sugar subtleties, each one tasted and noted and found acceptable. The archive is the weight of those thousands of findings of acceptable, the accumulated evidence that most food is just food, that most days end without incident, that the specific horror at the centre of the job, the thing that might be hiding in the sweetness, the wrong taste behind the right one, is real but not constant, is possible but not inevitable. You have eaten from this kitchen for 8 months. You are fine. This has been true every morning you have woken up. It will probably be true tomorrow morning. Probably. Usually. So far. The investigation into Piece 11 concludes on the 3rd of November. Hodgkins delivers the finding in the anteroom on Tuesday morning before the rolls arrive. He sets his tablet on the table, sits in the chair that he never sits in because Hodgkins stands, and looks at you with his bronze coin eyes doing something slightly different from their usual expression. Not warmth. Warmth is not in Hodgkins' register. more like the expression of a man who has verified a calculation and found the number satisfactory. The March pane, he says. Young Thomas's apoplexy is confirmed by Butts as unrelated, a hereditary tendency. His father died similarly at 30. The piece 11 quality. Copper leaching from a preserving vessel, the same as 1528 at Greenwich. You feel something release in your chest that you hadn't noticed was held. The vessel has been destroyed. New copper from the spicery stores, properly tinned. The confectionery has been reviewed. The taste was real. The taste was real. He opens his tablet, makes a note. You did correctly. He stands. The conversation is over. He's already moving toward the service hatch. But then he pauses, doesn't turn back, just stops for 1 second, which is longer than Hodgkins normally stops for anything that isn't being written down. When I took this position, he says to the wall, the year was 1508, King's first year. I was 32 years old and I had been told the job required 3 qualities. A pause, steady nerves, reliable constitution. He moves again, reaches the hatch. You've got both. The third one takes longer. He knocks twice on the service door. The hatch opens. The rolls arrive. You think about the third quality for 2 weeks before you understand what he meant. No great attachment to any particular future. It's not fatalism. You've been trying it on as fatalism for 8 months, and it doesn't quite fit. It's not the same as not caring whether you live or die. It's something more precise than that. It's the capacity to act carefully and completely in the present moment without requiring the present moment to guarantee a specific outcome. To taste the March pane and report what you find, whether what you find is nothing or something, whether the outcome of finding something is gratitude or panic or blame or nothing at all. To do the work correctly regardless of what the work produces. The medieval philosophers had a word for this. You've never studied philosophy. You read tolerably well. You can manage accounts. You know enough Latin for the court prayers. But one of Hodgkins's books, which he leaves sometimes on the anteroom table, contains discussions of Stoic thought, and you've read enough in the intervals between tastings to recognize the idea when it arrives. Amor fati, love of fate. Not passive acceptance, active embrace. This moment exactly as it is, because it is what it is. You can't say you've achieved it, but you're beginning to understand its outline. Dr. William Butts comes to the anteroom on the 5th of November. You know Butts by reputation. Everyone at Hampton Court knows Butts. He's the King's personal physician, a Cambridge man, one of the few people at court who can tell Henry something he doesn't want to hear and survive the telling. He has the specific kind of authority that comes from being genuinely useful, not performed usefulness, not the elaborate dance of being seen to serve, but the real thing. A man whose skills keep the king's body functioning, who therefore has a kind of immunity that courtiers in silk coats can only dream about. He's about 50, compact, with the direct manner of a man who spends his professional life looking at things other people prefer not to examine. He sits across the table from you and opens a small notebook. Agnes Thorne, 8 months in the position. Yes. I'm reviewing the health of the tasting office. He looks at her with the same quality of attention he presumably directs at the king's leg. Assessing. Diagnostic. How's your appetite? You almost laugh. Adequate. Do you taste things when you're not tasting, off duty as it were? Do you find yourself analysing food you're eating for your own? Yes. All the time or sometimes? Less than it used to be. It was all the time in the first month. He makes a note. Ellen Bryce does it all the time. Still. After 25 years. I know. Her hands. You've noticed the tremor. You've been careful not to notice it formerly. Yes. Unrelated to her work. It's an essential tremor, present in her mother before her. He looks up. I'm telling you this because I've heard that people in this office sometimes attribute the tremor to the accumulation of trace exposures over time. That is not, as far as I can determine, what caused it. A pause. As far as you can determine. He meets your eyes, doesn't look away. I'm honest about the limits of what I can determine. I'm a physician at the court of Henry VIII. The limits of what I can determine are considerable. He makes another note. Do you sleep? Yes. Dream about the work. The 3rd week. Something in a cup that turned out to be bad wine. You woke up 3 nights in a row from a dream where the cup contained something else. Something that moved. In the first month, yes, less now. Good. That's the right trajectory. He closes the notebook. You're in good health. Your constitution is well suited to the position. Hodgkins tells me your judgment is reliable. Hodgkins told him that. You file this carefully. I want you to know something, Butt says, and his voice changes slightly. Less the physician making notes and more a person addressing another person. I've been trying to improve the systematic safety of this kitchen since 1527. I've pushed for better storage protocols, better sourcing documentation, better tracking of who handles what between market and table. Has it helped? Somewhat. A pause. The problem is that the threat the tasting office protects against is not primarily accidental contamination. Accidental contamination we manage with protocols. The threat is intentional, and intentional means intelligent, and intelligent means adapting. He stands, straightens his coat. What I'm saying, Miss Thorne, is that you are not a protocol. You are a person. And the reason you're more valuable than a protocol is that intelligence meets intelligence. Your judgment cannot be anticipated the way a rule can. He picks up his notebook. Stay in good health. Sleep. Eat your own meals with as much pleasure as you can manage. Don't let it eat you. He leaves. Don't let it eat you. You think about this for the rest of the afternoon, and then you don't think about it anymore. And then you wake up 3 weeks later thinking about it. The first frost comes on the 12th of December. You feel it before you see it, in the quality of the cold from the stone walls, which deepens overnight from the ordinary cold of November to something with intent. The water in the basin has a solid surface at 4 in the morning, not quite the full thickness of ice, but definite, purposeful, announcing the new season. Hampton Court in winter has its own character. The heat from the kitchen fires, which was overwhelming in summer and merely intense in autumn, becomes welcome now. People cluster near sources of warmth with the instinctive community of anyone sharing a resource against the cold. Scullions warming their hands near the boiling pots, ladies lingering in corridors close to the fireplaces, even guards who stand their posts with a certain grateful orientation toward whatever heat reaches them. The king's health deteriorates in cold weather. This is not official information. This is the information that travels through the corridors in the way that all real information travels, absorbed rather than stated. The leg wound from 1524 tightens in the cold. The physicians attend more frequently. The kitchen receives instructions for specific preparations, warming broths, spiced wines, dishes chosen for easy digestion rather than spectacular presentation. You taste all of them. They taste of warmth and care and the best efforts of 200 people trying to keep one man comfortable. The shortest day comes and goes. Midwinter, the turn of the year, the point after which the light begins its long recovery. The court celebrates. This is a feast of a different kind from the grand autumn occasions, more intimate, more pagan in its bones than the Christian overlay quite manages to conceal. Holly, fire, the specific joy of having survived to the turning point. You taste hippocras with cloves, roasted chestnuts, hot and slightly charred, the inside cream soft and sweet. A venison pottage with plums, the richness cut by the tart fruit in a way that makes your mouth do something involuntary. Spiced cakes from the confectionery. Thomas's replacement has been at Hampton Court for 3 weeks and is producing work that Thomas himself would recognise as adequate. A boar's head ceremonial, the dish carried in with music while everyone in the hall claps, not for the boar but for the theatre of it, the ritual completion of something that has been happening in English great halls for longer than any record. Fine, 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 fine. The boar's head sits in its glory at the high table. Henry eats from it. He is alive. You stand in the anteroom eating a piece of bread and listening to the music from the hall, through 2 walls of stone and feeling the warmth of the kitchen on your back, like a hand that means you no harm. The frost fair doesn't happen this year. The Thames freezes some years, thick enough to hold the weight of a market. Stalls on the ice, fires burning in iron baskets, the extraordinary spectacle of a river become a road. You've heard about it from Martha, who saw one in her childhood, who describes it with the slightly bewildered quality of someone describing a dream. The whole river, solid. You could walk across it. There were people selling hot pies in the middle. This year the Thames freezes at its edges and not much further. You walk to the river gate on Christmas morning and look at the ice where it reaches out from the bank, pale grey-green, holding without giving. The centre of the river still moves dark and purposeful, breaking the ice where it forms and carrying the pieces downstream. You stand there for a few minutes. The cold is extraordinary, the kind of cold that enters through your clothing and negotiates directly with your bones. Your breath comes in white bursts. The riverside smells of mud and cold water, and something green and faintly alive underneath the frost. A barge goes past, heading downriver toward London. The men on it are muffled to the ears, and they move quickly, not from haste, but from the necessity of keeping warm. One of them looks up and sees you standing at the gate, and lifts a hand. You lift yours back. A moment of complete ordinariness in the middle of a day that will be celebrated as holy. You go back inside before the cold gets fully into your feet. Martha knows things. This is the reliable fact you've accumulated about her over 8 months of shared beds and shared silences, and the particular knowledge of someone who is with you when you wake up and when you fall asleep. She knows things because laundresses are in every room in a palace. They collect the linens, the napkins, the towels, the intimate cloths that document the bodily life of power. They move through spaces that close to almost everyone else. They see the evidence of what happens and they carry it away, and they wash it out and they say nothing. Martha says nothing professionally. She's been doing this for 12 years. But on the night before 12th night, with the celebration still audible from the great hall and both of you too tired to sleep, she says, "The Queen's linen is different this month." You wait. Last month, the month before, it was the same as always. Now it's different. The kind of different that happens before a birth. She turns over. Her voice is entirely matter-of-fact. She's with child. You lie still. Does she know? It's a foolish question. Of course she knows. Since at least October, I'd say, the way it presents. Martha adjusts the blanket. Hodgkins knows. He doesn't tell you. He wouldn't. The tasting office and the laundry office operate in adjacent worlds, but with different information. Does anyone else know? The Queen's ladies, her physician, the King, obviously. It's still early. They don't announce early. A pause. After 2, you don't announce early. She means the miscarriages, 2 since Elizabeth's birth in 1533. She needs this one, Martha says softly. She needs it to be a boy. She needs it to be a boy means. She needs the thing that will make Henry keep wanting her. She needs the currency of a male heir to buy her continued relevance in a court where relevance expires. She needs this because without it she is a woman who has cost the king everything. The Pope, his first queen, 20 years of religious tradition, the goodwill of half of Europe, and given him 1 daughter and 2 losses. And the king's arithmetic on this has been getting colder. You think about her face in the gallery in October, the tiredness, the waiting. She knew then. She was carrying this then, this hope, or this weight, or this particular combination of the 2 that only a woman who has lost 2 and carried 1 to term can know. Did you know? Martha says, and her voice has the quality of someone who tells things carefully, who's been carrying them for a while. There's talk that the king visited Mistress Seymour at her father's house in September. 3 days. You say nothing. She's a quiet one, that Seymour, different from Anne. Anne always. You could feel her in a room before you saw her. Seymour is the other kind, the kind that's there before you notice. The kind that's there before you notice. Anne Boleyn, who remade the world. Jane Seymour, who is learning how to wait. Go to sleep, Martha, you say. She goes to sleep. She's asleep within 3 minutes, her breathing deepening into the stone-sinking rhythm. You lie awake for a while longer, looking at the dark. The child quickens in January. You know this because Martha told you, and also because the Queen's household changes quality in a way that's palpable, even to the people who aren't in her rooms. There's a relief in it, a collective exhale that travels through the palace, the way cold travels through stone, absorbed rather than announced. The 3rd month, the most dangerous past. The thing that grows in her now is a fact, not yet a certainty, but something more substantial than a hope. The kitchen receives new instructions from the physicians. The Queen's table should include more liver, iron, and less spiced wine, less pepper, fewer strong flavours, more milk dishes, almonds, figs. You taste the figs, they taste fine. Feast days come and go in their proper order. 12th night, Candlemas, Shrovetide, the last indulgence before Lent, when the kitchens produce 40 years' worth of excess in 48 hours. Fat Tuesday, and the accumulated richness of everything to be given up for 40 days. You taste 17 courses of meat-rich dishes, the kitchen performing its final show before the long restraint, subtleties in the form of flowers because it's February and the confectionery has been making flowers for weeks, the artificial blooms of sugar paste that fill the hall with the sweetness you can smell from outside the door. Fine, fine, fine. Lent arrives. The kitchen transforms. The roasting spits go cold. The great cauldrons shift to fish stocks. The spicery's consumption changes profile from pepper and cinnamon to mustard and vinegar. Fish on every day. Fast days properly observed. The smell of the kitchen in Lent. Salt fish and cold, and the vinegar that goes on everything, and less of the rich animal warmth that fills the building from October to February. It's actually a relief. One Wednesday, in the second week of Lent, you are summoned to Hodgkins's own room. His room is small, 3 floors above the anteroom, with 2 windows that face north. Cold light, no direct sun, a view of the back courtyard where the delivery carts come and go. A table covered in tablets and ledgers. Books, 6 of them, which is considerable. A wooden cross on the wall in the new style, plain and reformed, lacking the painted Christ that hung in these rooms until recently. He's standing at the window when you arrive. He's always standing. In May, he says without preamble, this office will have an expanded duty. You wait. I'm told the king will receive a significant diplomatic party from the Holy Roman Empire in late May or early June. A delegation of 20, possibly more, staying at Hampton Court for a minimum of 2 weeks. He turns to look at you. During this period, the tasting protocols extend to cover the food of the entire high table. Not only the king's personal courses, but the shared dishes. This is a significant expansion. The shared dishes, the platters placed in the centre of the table, from which all high table guests serve themselves, currently fall under a separate protocol managed by the steward's office. Bringing them under the tasting office's review means roughly doubling the volume of work. Why the change, you ask? Because the Holy Roman Emperor's ambassador will be present, and the ambassadors of powers that don't currently like each other are eating from the same plate. He turns back to the window. The risks in diplomatic feasts are specific. The political geometry of who might want whom inconvenienced is complex. He doesn't say someone might try to poison someone who isn't the king, using the shared dishes as the vehicle. He doesn't have to. You'll need to train for the expanded work, he says. Ellen will work with you. The protocols are different for shared dishes, larger portions, different timing, additional witnesses required. Understood. He's quiet for a moment. Then, you've been here 9 months now. Since the 1st of March last year. 9 months. He picks up his tablet, examines something on it that might be real or might be a way of not having to meet someone's eyes during a personal observation. I've had 11 tasters in this position since 1508. You've lasted 9 months without a dismissal, without a serious error, without a health incident that required removal. There was Piece 11. Piece 11 was correct procedure, correctly executed. He puts the tablet down. The previous holder of your position lasted 4 months. He started a pause, looking for the precise word, interpolating. He started tasting things and finding problems that investigation couldn't confirm. After the 3rd false alarm in 4 months, the kitchen staff lost confidence in his findings, which made him useless. He meets your eyes now. The value of this office is entirely dependent on the kitchen staff's trust in your findings. Too many false alarms and you become noise, not enough vigilance and you become decoration. A pause. You have found exactly the right balance so far. He says this the way he notes the time of a tasting. Matter of fact, precise, moving forward immediately to the next thing. But you carry it out of his room the same way you carry everything useful here, carefully, against your chest, so to speak, where it won't fall. Late April. The diplomatic visit is 6 weeks away. The kitchen is preparing with a kind of layered intensity that will build, you know now, continuously until the visitors arrive. The spicery has received 3 additional deliveries this month. The confectionery has hired 2 additional craftsmen on temporary contract. The great kitchen itself has been cleaned, which is to say, cleaned in the specific way large institutions clean themselves when important people are coming. Every surface scraped, every drain opened and flushed, every wall brushed down. The smell of the kitchen this week includes the clean, caustic smell of lye and the smell of fresh stone where the smoke staining has been taken back. You walk through at 7 in the evening after the day's final tasting and before supper. Will is at the spit. You stop. Actually stop, which you don't usually do. He's taller than he was in October, taller and thinner, stretched by the months of work with the too lean quality of a child whose body is growing faster than the food supplied to it can quite keep pace with. The bandage on his left hand is gone, replaced somewhere in the intervening months by a scar, a simple white seam running across 2 fingers where a spark caught him in November. He showed you once, briefly and without comment, when you were passing through and happened to look at his hands. His face tonight has changed. Not the brick-red exhaustion of October. Something else. A kind of settled quality. A watchfulness in the eyes that wasn't there before. He's been in this kitchen for over a year now. He knows the spits the way you know the routes through the palace. He knows how long everything takes, and how hot different positions feel, and which other boys can be trusted and which ones will burn you if you let them. He looks up and sees you looking. His expression doesn't change much, but there's a flicker of recognition. Not warmth exactly, more like, you again, you're still here, same as me. You are both still here. This is the shared fact of you. All right, you say? He considers the question. Arm aches, he says. Cold today, the metal holds the cold. Eat tonight? Pottage, same as always. You nod. You have no power to improve his food. He eats from the communal kitchen pot, the same as all the spit boys, the same as the scullions and the lower servants. It's filling. It is not the feast. I'll be back on early shift in March, you say, meaning nothing except something to say, except it is something. It's the small acknowledgement that you both will be back, that tomorrow exists, that the continuation of the work is also the continuation of you. He nods, goes back to turning. You go to supper. In the garden on an April evening, the frost completely gone now. The bed's beginning to show the early ambitions of spring. Small green things pushing through the turned earth, the promise of later flowers. You sit on a stone bench and do nothing for 15 minutes. This is not a habit you had in Norwich. In Norwich, the children of struggling wool merchants don't sit on benches doing nothing. They help with accounts, or they help with the house, or they help with the garden in the specific utilitarian sense of growing food, not cultivating beauty. But Hodgkins, who regulates the tasting office with a precision that includes knowing where his tasters are most hours of the day, told you in January that 10 minutes of deliberate stillness per day is the difference between a reliable taster and an unreliable one. He said this without elaboration, in the same tone he uses for everything, and you believed it because it has proven to be correct. The stillness lets the palate reset. This is the practical function. It also does something to the accumulation. Gives the archive a moment to file rather than pile up. You sit and look at the garden. The Hampton Court gardens in April are moving toward what they'll be in June and July. The elaborate knot gardens to the west. The kitchen gardens to the north. The river walk to the south where the Thames comes close enough to see from the bank. All of it designed to be seen from above, from the king's private apartments, the living geometry of controlled nature spread for one person's view. You're inside the geometry, which means you see only the nearest bed and the edge of the hedge, and the path curving away. The hole is invisible from here. This is, you've come to think, the actual experience of being alive in this place or any place. You're in it, which means you see only the part nearest you. The shape of the hole is visible only from a distance, and by the time you have the distance to see the shape, you're no longer inside it, which means the seeing and the living are somewhat mutually exclusive. Ellen Bryce has the distance. She's been here 25 years. She can see, from the position of her 51 years and her slightly shaking hands, the shape of things she was too deep inside to see at 22. You're at 22. Inside, seeing the nearest bed, piece 11, copper leaching, Thomas alive, the Queen's changed linen, Martha knowing what she knew, the King alive and eating, every morning the bread warm from the oven, Will taller, you still here. This is the view from inside. This is the view you have. It's enough. It's the only one available. The garden smells of turned earth and something green and faintly sweet. The first blossoms somewhere, not visible from here but announcing themselves regardless. The smell travelling ahead of the evidence. In the anteroom, on the morning of the 1st of May, 1536, 1 year and 2 months after your arrival, Hodgkins opens the ledger to a fresh page. He dates it, sets his tablet beside it, looks up at the service hatch. The hatch opens, the rolls arrive, 12 of them, warm, the crust springy under your finger. Springy. This is the sound they make. You've heard it every morning for over a year. It has become the sound the morning makes when it begins. You tear the first piece of the first roll, put it in your mouth. Note, warm, mild yeasty sweetness, fine flour, the faint salt of the crust, warmth travelling down, no sharpness, no metallic quality, no dryness, no bitterness, no wrong note of any kind. Just bread. Just the bread that it is, warm on a cold spring morning, in an anteroom in a palace where everything is always about to be something other than what it is, where every corner you turn might show you the next thing the world is becoming. Just bread. Roll 1, you say. Hodgkins makes his note, and outside, beyond the service door, beyond the 55 rooms of the kitchen, beyond the palace and its gardens and its river gate, and its formal geometry visible from above, beyond all of it, the morning of the 1st of May is coming in over the Thames, pushing the dark back westward, finding the windows and making the stone glow the particular colour that old stone goes when the sun is new and everything is still possible. You move to roll 2. The king will be dead in 11 years. His daughter Elizabeth, born in the same palace, will reign for 45 years and outlast everything people thought they knew about what a ruler needed to be. Anne Boleyn will be executed 19 days from today, on the 19th of May, 1536. The charges against her, adultery, conspiracy, incest, are almost certainly fabricated. She goes to it with more composure than anyone has a right to expect. Jane Seymour will marry Henry 11 days after Anne's death. She will die in October 1537, 12 days after giving birth to the boy Henry wanted. The boy will become Edward VI and reign for 6 years and die at 15. Master Geoffrey will retire in 1540, replaced by a man from Burgundy, whose sources are technically perfect and who is universally disliked. Will, the spit boy, will complete his kitchen service and become a journeyman cook, and his name will appear in a household inventory of 1545 as William Cooper, undercook, second position, wages 6pence per week. A life, evidence of survival. Ellen Bryce will serve until 1541. Her retirement is recorded in the steward's accounts as a pension of 4 shillings per month, which is something, not nothing. Hodgkins will serve until 1548, 3 years into the reign of the son whose breakfast he helped protect for 20 years. His final entry in the tasting ledger is dated the 12th of March, 1548. The handwriting is the same bronze precision, the same meticulous record. Agnes Thorne. Her name does not appear in the surviving records, but she was here, and the king ate his bread. Every morning for the duration of her service the king ate his bread. Let that be enough. Let sleep take you all the way down now, past the anteroom and the service hatch, and the rolls arriving warm from the oven, past the kitchen fires and the spit boys turning in the accumulated heat of 200 people working at the edge of their capability, past the queen in her gallery, and the physician with his notebook, and the laundress who knows things she carries quietly home. Past piece 11 in its strongbox, examined and filed, the copper vessel destroyed, the protocol improved. Past the garden in April, the smell of first blossoms travelling ahead of the evidence. Past all of it. Let the palace go dark the way it goes dark every night, by degrees, the inhabited rooms going quiet one by one, the fires banking, the guards settling into the long patience of their midnight rounds. Let Hampton Court hold its own warmth in its old stone. Let everything that happened here rest. Let the people who did the invisible work that kept the visible world running, let them rest at last in the simple recognition that they were here. They ate what needed eating. They stood where they needed to stand. They kept the thing alive. And the thing continued. You are warm enough. You are far enough from the noise. The morning will come when it comes, and the rolls will be warm, and you'll know what to do, but that's tomorrow. Right now there's only this. The long, slow drift. The release. Good night.